The case of the silent violinist. It all began on a quiet, windless morning in a town that most people had already forgotten. Elias Grayson, a 60-year-old recluse, lived alone at the edge of that town. His house stood slightly crooked, surrounded by overgrown bushes and the kind of silence that made even birds avoid landing nearby. People rarely saw him, and when they did, he walked quickly, eyes down, as if the world itself were something to be avoided. Elias had once been a respected restorer of musical instruments. Violins, cellos, violas, he brought them back to life. But that was long ago. For nearly 3 decades, he had lived in isolation, his tools gathering dust, his days blending into one another. Until the letter arrived. There was nothing remarkable about the envelope, no return address, no stamp from a distant land, just his name, written in careful, almost deliberate handwriting. Inside, there was no message, no greeting, no explanation, only a small piece of paper with 3 numbers, 14, 22 to 8, and a key. Old, tarnished, heavy. Elias turned it over in his hand, frowning. He didn't recognize it. He didn't recognize anything about this. And yet, something about it stirred a faint, uncomfortable curiosity deep inside him. The next morning, things became stranger. When Elias opened his front door, he froze. Lying on the wooden porch was a violin bow. Not just any bow, it was elegant, aged, and clearly valuable. But there was no violin, no case, no footprints in the dust. Attached to the bow was a small tag. "He is waiting for you." Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. For a moment, he considered throwing everything away, ignoring it, locking the door, and returning to his silent routine. But he didn't. Instead, for the first time in years, Elias felt something unfamiliar. Intrigue. The town noticed. Not because of the letter or the bow, but because Elias started going outside. He visited the old records office, flipping through dusty archives. He wandered through abandoned buildings. He even asked questions, awkwardly, briefly, but enough to spark whispers. Elias is looking for something. Or someone. Rumors spread quickly. Some said he had found hidden treasure. Others claimed he was losing his mind. Elias ignored them all. He became obsessed. The numbers, 14, 22, 8, had to mean something. Coordinates? A code? A safe combination? The key must open something. It had to. He spent nights awake, scribbling possibilities, revisiting places he hadn't seen in decades. He checked attics, basements, even the remains of old shops. Nothing. Days passed. Then nearly a week. Exhaustion crept into his bones, but he refused to stop. At one point, he became convinced his neighbor was involved, a quiet man who lived across the street and occasionally watched him through binoculars. Elias caught him more than once, standing still behind his window, watching, waiting. It made everything feel even more like a game, or a trap. On the 7th day, someone knocked on his door. Elias opened it slowly. A man in a suit stood there, holding a leather folder. "I'm looking for Mr. Elias Grayson." "That's me. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm an attorney. I believe you are the beneficiary of a rather unusual inheritance." Elias blinked. "I don't have any family." "You had a distant relative," the lawyer said calmly. "Recently deceased. A man with a fondness for puzzles and detective stories." Elias's heart skipped. "The letter," he whispered. "The beginning of the process," the lawyer confirmed. "To claim your inheritance, you must complete what he designed. A quest. A game. A test." Suddenly, everything made sense. The numbers. The key. The bow. "He is waiting for you." Elias didn't waste a second. He threw himself back into the mystery, this time with renewed purpose. If this was a puzzle, it had an answer. If it had an answer, he would find it. 3 more days passed. 3 long, relentless days. And then, it clicked. 14 to 22, 8. Not a code. A location. The local cemetery. Section 14. Row 22. Plot 8. Elias ran. For the first time in years. He ran without thinking about his age, his breath, or the aching in his legs. The cemetery stood quiet under a pale sky, surrounded by tall, whispering trees. He found the section, then the row, then the grave. His hands trembled as he knelt beside it. There, partially hidden beneath the stone slab, was a small iron box. Old, Rusted. Locked. Elias reached into his pocket. The key. The same one he had carried since the beginning. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he inserted it into the lock. It turned. Inside the box, there was no gold, no documents, no fortune, only two things: a photograph and a note. Elias picked up the photo first. His breath caught. It was him, at 10 years old, smiling, holding a violin. With shaking hands, he opened the note. You spent 10 days of your life chasing the past. I spent years hoping you would step outside and see the world again. Elias swallowed hard. Your inheritance is real. A house in the mountains. Quiet. Beautiful. Alive. But the true key was never hidden. You've had it in your pocket since the very first day. Elias frowned, confused. The key. You thought it was part of the game. But it wasn't. It was something you already owned. Something you forgot. His mind raced. The weight. The shape. Recognition dawned slowly. It wasn't new. It was familiar. An old garage key. One he had lost years ago. Or thought he had. Awareness is the real treasure. And yes, your neighbor. Elias's heart skipped again. That was me. I just needed to make sure you wouldn't give up. The truth settled over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. The relative wasn't really family. He was an old friend of Elias's father. Someone who had watched him disappear into solitude. Someone who refused to let that be the end of his story. Elias sat there for a long time. Longer than he could remember sitting anywhere. The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time in decades, he noticed it. The warmth of the sun, the scent of spring, the quiet beauty of the world he had shut out for so long. He hadn't found money. He hadn't found treasure. But he had found something far more unsettling and far more valuable. A reason to live again. Weeks later, Elias left the town. Not in secrecy, not in silence, but with purpose. The house in the mountains was real. And the key, it had been his all along. Just like the life he had forgotten to live.